Hi everyone, so thanks for joining me today on another photo walk. I'm out here in Alexandria, and I thought I'd try and do some more street photography or architectural photography, you know, whatever catches my eye. Alright, so now my journey begins to find my car. You know, I'm really going to have to make a very conscious effort in the future to remember where I parked. This is so frustrating. I could have sworn I parked on this street. Okay everyone, so I just had to get off the street for a minute to wrap up, you know, my final thoughts on the walk today. But I tried to get a little bit of everything in and not shoot with the art filters outside of just shooting in monotone and adjusting maybe the color filter in the monotone and the gradation. You know, I shot primarily in low-key gradation, which gives the pictures, I think, a little bit more punch, but technically all it's doing is trying to expose for the highlights. But what I was really looking for is not to save the highlights, but to crush the shadows a little bit. And I also turned the sharpening to -2 because I found that the JPEG files in this camera, you know, I never really liked the grain pattern. And upon, you know, using this camera for a little while, I discovered that it's not actually the grain pattern that I don't like, it's the artificial sharpening that this camera applies to the JPEGs. So when I turned the sharpness down to -2, I found that the grain pattern was a little bit more pleasant. And I'll try and get some little bit, some higher ISO shots later. I think most of the ones today were shot at ISO 100. But even at ISO 100, when you start to pixel peep a little bit, you know, having that sharpening on anything but -2 starts to show up in the picture. And I think when you back off and look at the picture as a whole, it may be okay, but a lot of times, you know, with this camera, you have to shoot at higher ISOs, and that artificial sharpening just really, it just kind of destroys the picture for me personally. But give that a try. You know, try turning the sharpening down to -2. Try turning the contrast up to +2. And then everything else you can kind of leave the same. But if you're going to be shooting at very high ISOs on this camera, I found that adding saturation to +2 kind of helps if you're going to be shooting in color. Because high ISOs tend to, you know, wash the colors out a little bit, so you have to crank it up artificially. But again, make sure you leave the sharpening to -2, and then if you want to do any sharpening, you can do that in post-processing if you want to. But visually, I didn't see, when you back off, much difference between you know, having the sharpening at +2 or -2. It's just when you start to zoom in a little bit or pixel peep a little bit, you might not like the grain pattern when the sharpening is at +2 in your JPEGs anyway. But that's really the only tips I wanted to leave tonight for the TG5. As I'm standing here, you know, if you stand in one spot long enough, you find another picture. So I was kind of looking right over here while I was talking. There's a bench against some brick wall, and I think that might make it for a nice shot. And then over here behind me, I like the way the lights are coming down on the brick, creating some nice texture. So I think I'll try and get a couple more shots here before I head out. But as always, I appreciate you guys joining me on my photo walks and all of the great feedback I've been getting. And hopefully that taking out this TG5, you know, with this tiny sensor, I really hope that people realize that, and it's been said 1,000 times, it's not the camera. I mean, this TG5 has a tiny sensor in it, right? Little compact camera sensor. And yet I'm getting pictures I really love out of this camera. So it's got nothing to do with sensor size. So it's been really frustrating to watch all of these YouTubes lately on the meltdown, as Joe Edelman put it, about the EM1X coming out being a $3,000 crop sensor camera, Micro Four Thirds camera in particular, and that's besides the point. You know, that camera has a lot of features in it that you're not going to find in any other camera. And when I think about it more, and yeah, it didn't have some features that I wanted personally, you know, like I talked about in my other vlog. You know, I want illuminated buttons, I wanted a top LCD plate, I wanted a better viewfinder. You know, those are things I'm looking for in my next camera. But being a Micro Four Thirds or a crop sensor camera, let me tell you, if I find even a compact camera that has illuminated buttons and a top plate LCD and an excellent viewfinder, I'll buy it, okay? Because I don't care about the sensor size. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about. But again, as always, I appreciate you guys watching, you know, and all the kind feedback. I'm gonna try and grab a couple more shots here before I go, and we'll see you in the next one.